Hello, good day. I am Jaseluh Saturinas, or Miss Jazz, one of UP Cebu's guidance services specialists from the Office of Student Affairs. So thank you for taking the time to learn about psychological first aid. So you might ask yourself, why learn psychological first aid? Shouldn't we leave this to the counselors? Shouldn't we leave this to other mental health professionals? If you're a teacher or a classmate of someone experiencing mental distress all the time, or at the real time, you're often first to notice or be approached by students with problems. So you will also be the first one to notice if a student or a classmate who has been acting unusual. You may also find yourself in a situation wherein you will be asked to provide intervention to a crisis right away to the student involved and in the immediate surroundings. So since most have no training or may feel unprepared to handle these issues, it could lead also to them avoiding to help altogether, or it could be getting in over one's head. So considering also in the present environment that we are now living in a VUCA world. So when we say VUCA world, we live in a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So when we say volatile, we are living in a volatile world that's changing rapidly and unpredictably. We're living in a world where it's uncertain, the future is unknown, and there is an inability to know what will happen for sure, and this would require patience and a contingency plan. We're living in a complex world, which, because also of globalization, there is many distinct but interconnected variables. We are also living in an ambiguous world, wherein there are circumstances with multiple meanings, which would require objectivity without projecting biases. Now, the question is, how do we respond also to a VUCA world? So in terms of volatile, we have to respond with speed. So sudden changes would require a rapid response, and well-honed skills are easier to deploy. So this is where your skill of psychological first aid would come in handy in terms of, let's say, when you are faced with a situation wherein you are the direct person or the person in the scene, and experiencing or witnessing someone experiencing mental distress as of the moment. To deal with uncertainty, we also have to respond with flexibility because we do not know what will happen for sure. So we have to be flexible in terms of our responses. So again, this would require patience and contingency plan. In responding to a complex world, we have to respond with breadth, meaning you have a repertoire of skills that you can use in terms of emergencies. And in terms of an ambiguous world, we have to respond with self-awareness so we don't get confused about our values and also be aware of our internal biases. So putting this all together, the skill of psychological first aid would come in handy as we deal with an ever-changing world, and especially right now as how do we also use psychological first aid as we are doing physical distancing, or how do we use psychological first aid in a virtual world. So for this topic, here are some of the objectives. So first would be to understand basic and core action principles of psychological first aid, and to learn strategies and techniques to facilitate psychological first aid, especially in remote psychological first aid. So what is psychological first aid? So according to Sphere and the IASC, psychological first aid describes a humane, supportive response to a fellow human being who is suffering and who may need support. So PFA involves the following. So it provides practical care and support, but it's not intrusive. It's assessing needs and concerns, helping people to address basic needs, for example, such as food, water, and information, listening to people but not pressuring them to talk, comforting people and helping them to feel calm, helping people connect to information, services, and social support, and protecting people from further harm. What psychological first aid is not, it's not something that only professionals can do. It is not professional counseling. It's not psychological debriefing in that PFA does not necessarily involve a detailed discussion of the event that caused the distress. It is not asking someone to analyze what happened to them or to put time and events in order. And although PFA involves being available to listen to people's stories, it is not about pressuring people to tell you their feelings and reactions to an event. So what is the goal of psychological first aid? So PFA promotes and sustains an environment of safety, of calm, connectedness, self-efficacy, help, and hope. Now, we will be delving into the core principles of PFA, which is look, listen, and link. So I will be expounding more of these principles in the succeeding slides. So first core principle of psychological first aid is to look. So these are the 3 steps in looking. So 1, check for safety. 2nd, check for people with obvious urgent basic needs, and check for people with serious distress reactions. So when we talk about looking, this is when you scan the surroundings. So before you offer help, look around first. Observe the scenario, observe the environment, or observe the situation, and do a quick scan of the surroundings of the environment. So how do you do this scanning? How do you do this quick observation of the environment? Is through these 3 steps. So again, number 1, check for safety. So you can look into check if the person is in a safe environment. So again, also look into what are some of the dangers in the environment. So is the student near the road, or is the student inside the classroom alone? So again, check the environment first, and what are possible dangers in the environment. Now, you can also you also have to check if the student is physically and emotionally in the current how the student is physically and emotionally in the current location or environment. So again, if we are still in the looking part, it does not mean you have to act immediately, but again, you have to do a quick scan first. 2nd is check for people with obvious urgent basic needs. So you can try looking into if the student injured or in need of emergency medical help. So again, while you are doing this quick scan, also look into mentally what are some of the possible ways that you can link them, or what possible help that you can offer to or link them to. 2nd is, does the student have any obvious urgent basic needs such as food, water, clothing, etc., or even safety? And also check into who else is available around you to help. So if is there someone also who can assist you in giving psychological first aid or looking around. Now with this, with looking also, know you would be able to know your role and try to get help for people who would need special assistance, or who or those who have obvious urgent basic needs. So if there are critically injured people in the scene, so refer them to medical personnel or others trained in physical first aid. So 3rd step for looking is to check for people with serious distress reactions. So check if the student or your classmate is extremely upset. Are they not able to move on their own? Are they not responding to others, or are they in shock? So what are some physical symptoms that can help you in looking if they are in serious distress reactions? So this could be shaking, this could be crying, they could be jumpy, no, they could be on guard, or they might be anxious, or they might be sad, so or in a daze, or they could be emotionally numb. So these are some of the examples that you can look into if they have serious distress reactions. Now you might be asking, since all these are done usually in a physical or in a face-to-face psychological first aid, how do we also look remotely, or how do we also look virtually in the case right now, as we are in the pandemic? So you can look remotely through their social media posts. So this could help you look into what is the content, or what are the content of what they share, and what are their recent posts, their activity or non-activity. So this could another telltale sign can also be social exclusion. meaning they could either be withdrawing from social media accounts, or not responding to your chats, or not even responding to your emails. So this is very helpful also in looking into, because as we slowly prepare for remote learning or remote help, this could also be one of the signs that students may also need help. Third is unusual changes in online behavior. So what are some unusual changes? So again, number one, they could be very active in social media, and then suddenly they've been withdrawn. Or let's say their posts may contain very trivial, or very there are posts that would make you question also know of why they are posting or sharing those. So these are some of the ways that you can look also remotely. So looking into the environment also of the student from a distance. Now, second core principle of psychological first aid is listen. So after looking and checking the situation, the next step would be to listen. So listening properly to people you're helping is essential to understand their situation and their needs, to help them to feel calm, and to be able to offer appropriate help. Now, when we listen, we learn to listen with our eyes. So giving the person your undivided attention. Listen with your ears, truly hearing the concerns, and listen with your heart, with caring and showing respect. Now, as you're done looking, before we check and engage with a student or a classmate or an individual we see, we have to establish contact and engagement first through introducing ourselves or as to why we are approaching them. So these are the three steps in listening. So number one, approach people who may need support. Second, ask about people's needs and concerns. And third, listen to people and help them to feel calm. Now, first, approach people who may need support. So again, when we approach people, we try to connect and establish a caring relationship. So how do we do this? First and foremost, we have to introduce ourselves. So we do not just approach them out of the blue and then asking them immediately what happened. So you have to let them know. Example, hi, I am Miss Jazz. I am a guidance services specialist from UP Cebu. How may I help you? So again, ask if you could, when you ask for help, introduce yourself first, because so that they would also know if you are someone that they can trust, no? So that's the first step. Now, when you approach people, you also have to be careful that you have to approach them respectfully and according to their culture. So we also have to be culturally sensitive in approaching people. So some cultures might not encourage touch. So we have to be careful also when we use touch, you know, in dealing with people, because they might not be comfortable with it. So as you introduce yourself, still maintain some sort of boundaries. And again, that's a time when you approach and introduce yourself. So again, if you ask if you can provide for help. Now, once you're done, once you have established this contact or this relationship, ask again if you can provide for help, and if possible, find a safe and quiet place to talk. So secure the person and make sure that the dignity of the person will still be preserved. No? So bring to a safe, secure, and private location. So as you try to keep the person safe, check also if the person is not a threat to oneself or to others. So again, look into the present situation. So you can probably ask, no, if there are cases of self-harm, no. So check. I can see that your hand is bleeding. No, your friend or your classmate told me that you have cut yourself with the blade. Do you still have the blade with you? Let me see if it has rust in it. So try to encourage a person to hand over like, let's say, the blade or anything that could harm themselves, to make sure that they are also safe. So this is your first step, is to always ensure that they are safe and they are secure. So aside from that, aside from checking that if they are safe, check also if the person can be provided more comfort. So let's say you can see that there is some swelling on the feet of the person. So I see that there's some swelling on your feet. Let us find a more comfortable position for you to sit. Or again, so help the person, help the student to make to feel more comfortable. And you can also, for example, you can also offer water if you can. So try also to protect the person from exposure to the media. So especially if it's a very public location, so secure them for also for their privacy and dignity. So if the person is also distressed, try to make sure that they are not alone. So even your presence without talking is already comforting and sometimes could also be enough. So after establishing contact and engagement, it would now be the time to check for the person's safety. So and their obvious urgent basic needs. So this is for the second step. Second step for listening is to ask about people's needs and concerns. So find out um, what is most important to them as of the moment, and help them work out their priorities. So you can inquire into their condition and determine what are their urgent needs. So um, some questions that you can ask, no, is how are you feeling right now? Are you in pain? How have you been hurt? Have you eaten? Is there anything that you are experiencing right now that is bothering you? How can I be of help? So again, this is to ensure or to also look into their urgent basic needs. So now, as you are all asking this, again, you have also to be considerate about the person if and also have to ask them permission in doing all this. Now, third step in listening is to listen to people and help them to feel calm. Now, find out what happened to the person. However, if the person does not want to talk about the experience, do not force him or her to do so. So you can stay close, but do not pressure the person to talk. So if in case he or she decides to talk about the situation, try to determine the severity of the experiences that they have gone through and how they have been affected and how they are coping. So let's say you can ask them, what is your greatest concern right now? Or what do you need the most right now? And whatever they're telling you, whatever the response is, always maintain confidentiality. So since they have trusted you with their story, with their concern, then please do not also share it to other friends or other faculty, unless of course you are linking them to the appropriate mental health professional, or you're already linking them to the appropriate physical health professional or a doctor or a counselor. So that's the only time that you can share or talk about this. So this information is not meant for consumption for other people. So as they tell you what it is, and as you try to listen also, you also have to make them feel calm. And how do we do this? How do we make people feel calm in a distress situation? So you also have to model that. You have also to model the calm response. So you also have to model healthy responses. So again, that's being calm, being courteous, being organized, and helpful. So what are some of the ways to do that? So number one, keep your tone of voice calm and soft. If culturally appropriate, try to maintain some eye contact, of course, but not too creepy. No. So again, you have to be culturally sensitive. And third is to remind them that they are safe with you. And of course, you be honest, no, that they are safe with you. Do not also offer that yes, they are safe, but your location is not yet in a safe location. So again, which is why we have to ensure that they are in a safe location, safe and private location first. So that's for listening. Now, again, how do we listen remotely? How do we listen virtually in terms of in this time of the pandemic? So these are I will be sharing some steps, no, and usually these steps are mainly from our experience as counselors. Now, since we have been receiving calls, now we're usually at the receiving end of calls, and we're the one taking calls. So these are some of the steps that we do when we do psychological first aid or when we do counseling. So first one is to introduce yourself. So when someone calls you, you have also to confirm that they are calling the right person. So let's say when they call you and they try to introduce themselves, so let them know also, hello. So example, hi, this is Miss Jazz from UP Cebu. And that's when you ask also, how may I help you? So that's for listening remotely. Third is, this can be a bit challenging to do, no, to agree in the duration of the call, but this is very helpful in establishing the boundaries, or this is helpful as you try to link it also, or give the student or a person the appropriate help, no, which is or you're being efficient in directing them or linking them to the right mental health professional. So in my case, I usually tell them, since counseling sessions are usually an hour, I usually tell them for this, our online counseling sessions are usually a maximum of 1 hour. So at least they also know um, the duration or the limit also of the call. Fourth is, now this is the time when you ask their practical and emotional um, needs of the caller. So you can try to ask, how may I help you? And then that's when they tell you what happened to them and all. Now the fifth one is, now there is a usual misconception that when we do counseling or when we do first aid, that we have to give advice, but we are advised, or we are against. Oh, no, we are not advised to do that. No, we're not advised to give advice. So basically, when we link them, we usually try to ask about how they are already coping. So with what they are experiencing, also ask them, how are they coping? How are they managing themselves? No, how are they dealing with the stress that they are feeling? So ask about this. No, and for as you ask about self-care and stress management, also ask them what they choose to do. So what do they choose to do with their concerns, or what have or do they have plans? So let's say if they do have plans, then assist them in making that. Or if they do not know what to do next, then this is when linking becomes very important. So we do not give advices because we might do more harm than good. No? So we link them properly to the appropriate mental health professional. So again, if it's beyond your training, if it's beyond your skill as a provider or someone who would give psychological first aid, then know your limits, acknowledge your limits, and refer or link to the proper mental health professional. Again, because our first, we always have to remind ourselves that to do no harm. Okay. And lastly, after asking them how they're coping and how they're dealing and what they choose to do with it, or after linking them to the appropriate professional, summarize the conversation. So this, by summarizing the conversation, so this somehow signals the end also of your help. So how can you do the summarization? So discuss the key highlights, or what were the key issues discussed. So you, what I usually do in our practice is to um, um, summarize now what have they, why they approached or why they asked for help. Second, we discussed what are the issues that they have mentioned, and lastly, what is their plan of action. So that's how we usually summarize or end the conversation. And again, if you also ask them, know if what they suggest, what they plan to do after. So if you are linking them, also check on or follow up also in terms of that. So when you're doing this, or when you're listening remotely, also be mindful of, again, confidentiality. So when you are responding to calls or taking calls, make sure that you have a space which is also private. No, make sure that they're not on loudspeaker. No, so again, and whatever they have mentioned, again, please maintain the confidentiality. Of course, this one only has to be broken if there are cases of harm, and of course, when you are linking also to the mental health professionals. And of course, be mindful also of boundaries. No, we have to be careful also that we are not going over our boundaries and the boundaries also of the clients. And of course, be sincere also as you are doing psychological first aid or listening remotely. Now, the third principle for psychological first aid is to link. So when we link, we help people address basic needs and access services. When we link, we help people cope with problems, give information, and connect people with loved ones and social support. So for linking, help people address basic needs and access services. So this is a time when you offer practical help. So let's say during listening, it was mentioned by the student or by the client that I want to talk to my friend because I want my friend to help me out make a decision, or I want to talk to my parents. So if it's something that you can offer immediately, no, or at the moment, then do that. So offer practical help. So you can say, we can call your friend, we can call your parent, so that they can support you. So we can, let's say, um, assist them also to referral to services. So this is when, aside from the basic needs or the practical help, this is when you also link them to access services. No, so in our case for UP Cebu, so for health services, let's say if the person would need medical help, so we have Dr. Laurel D, our university physician. So you can see also the number for our health services unit. In terms of counseling services or mental health help, no, mental health help. Okay, we have our four guidance services specialists. So we have Miss Annabelle Maglasam. So she's in charge for biology and computer science, and you can see her email ad and her Facebook account for use for the counseling. We have Sir Sip Olita, so he's in charge for BS Math and BS Management, and his contact details are also posted. For Sir Jeffrey Pilonio, he's in charge for the College of Social Sciences, so that's for Psych and Pol Sci, and you can see also his contact details. And yours truly, I'm handling the College of Communication Arts and Design, so that's for COM and for the Fine Arts program. So those that's for helping them link to basic services, or access services. So second is to help people cope with problems. So in doing this, you ask the person what helps them to feel better, and ask regarding past coping strategies. So ask them also how they coped with difficult situations in the past. So this is also encouraging them or looking into their strengths. So looking back into the past would have what has helped you cope or deal with this situation, and affirm their ability to cope with the current situation as well. So encourage them to use positive coping strategies. Third is to give information. So as you link, you give them information as well. So this is very important that we have to be aware of who will be the right person that we will link, or what other, let's say, services or other information that could help them. So again, we do not need to know all the answers, but we have to, if in case we do not know, then we refer them to someone who might know about this kinds of information. So again, we try to give accurate information. If you're unsure, be honest, tell the person that you do not know instead of giving false information. And again, if you do not know or you do not know the answer, again, offer that you will search or you will find out about it, or look for someone who might know about the information. And lastly, connect people. As you link, you also connect people with loved ones and social support. So this is very important because social support actually helps in managing or dealing with mental health issues, that they feel that there's someone, or there's a group who's helping them out. Also gives added courage, added strength to overcome any concerns or problems that they have as of the moment. So ask them how they stay in touch with loved ones. So again, we link them. So if they want to talk to their parents, then we try to link them to their parents. If they want to talk to their boyfriends or girlfriends, then go ahead. So we give them that. We connect them to their loved ones and to the social support. So we help people to contact loved ones so they can get support. So for example, we provide a way for them to call. So that's one way that we can also link them to their social support. Now, how do we do the linking? No, how do we do linking remotely? So this was for linking remotely, the Office of Student Affairs, a guidance services specialist, we have a counseling referral form. So if in case you might have a classmate or a student or someone from a faculty or a staff who might have or who is experiencing some mental health concerns also, then you can fill out this form, tinyurl.com/UPCBU counseling referral form. So all you have to do is to click that form and fill out the details being asked in the referral form. So rest assured that this the form goes directly to the guidance services specialist. So no other people are have access to the answers to that. So you are assured of the strict confidentiality of these referral forms. And again, what else? I already showed this earlier, but again, as we do link remotely, so which is why we have opened our Facebook accounts and emails as well for requests for counseling. So you can see again, this is for Miss Annabelle, for Sir Sip, for Sir Jeffrey, and for yours truly, for Miss Jazz. So these are our Facebook and Facebook accounts and email addresses for online or telecounseling services. Now, as you end your assistance, no, so that was look, listen, and link. So use your best judgment of the person's needs. Again, remember your limits. If it's beyond your training or expertise, always refer to professionals. Again, do no harm. So if you link them already with professionals and or services, be sure that they have the contact details and they know what to expect. So be sure as well that you have a means of checking that they actually followed your advice, especially if the case is about suicide or violence cases. And no matter what your experience was, say goodbye in a good way and wish them well. So again, just to recap, the core principles of psychological first aid, that's look, listen, and link. So when you look, check for safety, check for people with obvious urgent basic needs, and lastly, check for people with serious distress reactions. And when you listen, approach people who may need support. Again, you introduce yourself. Second, ask about people's needs and concerns. So again, what are their urgent needs? Do they need water? Do they need to call someone? And third one is to listen to people and help them to feel calm. Again, we do not force the person to share about everything, but when they do, we listen respectfully and we make them feel calm as well. And lastly, linking. So when we link, we help people address basic needs and access services. We help them cope with the problems. So again, we draw from past experiences on how they have coped in the past. Third is to give information. And lastly, connect people with loved ones and social support. So when we are delivering psychological first aid, these are some of the professional behavior that we do. So again, model healthy responses. So we have, let's be calm, courteous, organized, and helpful. Be visible and available. Maintain confidentiality, and again, remain within the scope of your expertise and designated role. And we also make appropriate referrals, whether it's in the health services unit or for guidance and counseling services. Again, be knowledgeable and sensitive. So be mindful also of the different cultural differences, and diversity. And also at the same time, pay attention to your own emotional and physical reactions. So you also have to be careful that of your own nonverbal gestures in reacting or responding to the student or to the client or to your classmate. And after all this, learn also to practice self-care. So what are some self-care activities? Just taking time to rest. Or again, this is why boundaries are also important, because you as a helper would also need time to rest, to recollect or just to regain your strength, as you try to help or as you continue in the helping profession. So some don'ts in PFA. So do not make assumptions about what the person is experiencing or what they have gone through. Do not pathologize or do not label reactions as symptoms. Again, we cannot diagnose. Even as counselors, we can only identify some symptoms, but again, diagnosis will be done by psychiatrists. So do not talk down or patronize the person or focus on their helplessness or their weaknesses or their mistakes or disabilities. So focus instead on what he or she has done effectively to help themselves and others. Do not, again, speculate or offer possibly inaccurate information. So again, know the facts before answering their questions. Or again, if you do not know, then offer or search for it, research or link them. So do not assume that all students, all of your classmates or all your friends would want to talk or need to talk to you. So again, being physically or remotely present in a supportive, calm way would help students or your classmates feel safer and more able to cope. So sometimes they don't need the advices. Sometimes you just need someone to listen to them. So with that, thank you so much for listening about psychological first aid. So here are some of the references that I've used in for the presentation. So again, once again, thank you so much, and we hope that equipping you with psychological first aid would help you become more effective, more confident as you try to help out students and classmates or even our friends and family. So thank you and good day.